Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the virtual unveiling of her flag at the Clinton Presidential Center. My name is Stephanie Street, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Clinton Foundation. Tonight, we recognize the 100th anniversary of the passing of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. And we are so pleased to be joined by Marilyn Artus, the creator of her flag. Her flag is Maryland's nationwide art project, which celebrates the 72-year-long nonviolent fight to give women the vote in the United States. Although this project was her brainchild, she wanted her flag to be inclusive, so she invited female artists from 36 states to collaborate with her on this incredible effort. And as of today, the 18 by 26-foot flag is displayed on the front of the Clinton Center through September the 21st. Throughout this year, the Clinton Center will be commemorating the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, and her flag is a wonderful way to kick off our celebrations. And I'm excited to share that in December of 2020, we will debut a new temporary exhibition entitled Women's Voices, Women's Votes, Women's Rights. We are now in the final design phases and curation phases of this one-of-a-kind exhibition, and we'll have more to share in the next few weeks, so please stay tuned. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that the 19th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States effectively granted some women the right to vote, but that victory did not mean all women could vote. The racist laws and practices that kept women of color from the ballot box would take decades to undo. And although we celebrate the partial progress of the 19th Amendment, we need to remember that, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, it is not possible to be in favor of justice for some people and not be in favor of justice for all people. There is still much work to be done. I'd like to recognize a few more guests that are joining us for this evening's program. Akwi Nji, an artist and writer who explores the intersection of gender and race, and will offer a reading in just a few moments. Arkansas artist Virmarie DePoyster, she created the Arkansas stripe. Artist Higgins created the Tennessee stripe, and she has received many honors, including a special medal of honor from then Governor Bill Clinton. And last but never least, the one and only Kathleen Pate, who will moderate tonight's conversation. Kathleen serves as the education specialist at the Clinton Presidential Library. She also serves on the board of the Arkansas Women's History Institute and the Arkansas Women's Suffrage Centennial Committee. And last January, Kathleen represented Arkansas in the Rose Bowl Parade. She was one of 100 outwalkers behind the Pasadena Celebrates 2020 float. We are going to begin with the inaugural unveiling of her flag, which was recorded yesterday as the flag was being installed on the building of the Clinton Center. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope and know you will enjoy this program.
Her flag is an art and travel project to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment that I came up with in 2017. And I began traveling to make this flag in 2019, the summer. And where did I travel? I went to each of the 36 states in order of ratification and partnered with a woman artist to build a monstrous flag. So I just finished sewing the last stripe on just a few days ago in Tennessee, and I'm here. This is the inaugural exhibition of her flag, and couldn't be a better place for it to be. And I'm really excited to start this conversation. We're gonna have a great talk about suffrage and all the nerdy history stuff in this project. And it's finally here on the Clinton Presidential Library, and I like somebody pinch me. This is so awesome. It feels very surreal, this incredible, beautiful building full of positive energy, and to have it hanging here for 3 weeks is a dream come true.
What a wonderful view of her flag, to see it up close, to see it there on the Clinton Presidential Library. As Stephanie Street mentioned, I'm Kathleen Pate. I'm the education specialist at the Clinton Presidential Library, but I'm also a suffrage enthusiast. So having her flag on the side of the library, having the unveiling, this program today, the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment being added to the Constitution, is just an incredibly special opportunity. So I'm delighted to have our guests here, and we're going to speak with them some more. But first, we're going to have a spoken word performance by Akwi Nji.
Thank you so much. And it is just an incredible honor to be a participant in this process. I have two daughters of my own. They're 13 and 15 years old. And so to a certain degree, this is especially meaningful to me to just be able to take a moment to talk with them about how important this project is that Marilyn has undergone and how important it is to our country. So this is in part to them as well. Shrink, they said. Be small and soft, full of sugar and spice and everything nice. Smile pretty. Avoid the messiness of dirt. This is what we were told. Know your place as mother, as wife, as girl in your home. Say, in the 1860 of a Walt Whitman's America, we heard the varied carols of the men. The fabric of this America then, their work essential, their singing heard as it was deserved. But then, and then, and then, and then, finally and only many lines down the line, down the page, down the poem, down the way, were the mothers, the wives, the daughters. But then, to war went the men, and we snatched our chance. We took our places, the mothers, the daughters, the girls, the wives. We signed up, lined up, showed up. We smiled pretty and got messy as railway guards and ticket collectors, bus drivers and tram conductors, postal workers, police, firefighters, and factory workers. We wove ourselves into the narrative, the fabric of a new America then. We took our places beyond the home front of the front lines and the headlines of this history. And that history becomes our history in the strong hands of the mothers, of the daughters, of our girls, even, yes, our artists, because we, these people, of all people, we know how to mend. We know how to heal. We know how to bind together. We make clean, we make strong, we make brave, we break free. We break free the way we broke free with Susan B. and all the others who lined up, signed up, showed up, so that in 1920, women, we were 8 million strong in election one. 8 million strong at the polls in election one, and we grew stronger. We kept lining up, signing up, showing up, so that by 1964 at the polls, we outnumbered the men and have in every presidential election since then. Ladies, we own the vote. We own the vote. It is not without the help of all of our brothers along with us, our sisters of all kinds. I'm telling you, we own the vote. So we raise our voices. There is no choice but to hear us singing now. The varied carols of our voices singing, the mothers, the wives, the daughters, and as we sing, we leap. We leap into a new womanhood where we leave behind the fear of bruises, the sudden fall, the fear of gravity, risk, broken skin. We leave behind the fear of imperfection, the wrinkles that will come, the fear of being wrong, the fear of being strong. Let us lead. We balance the soft, rounded curves of compassion with a jagged flamed fire, power, and passion. We make career out of passion. We wrangle with the naysayers and we grapple with inhibitions. We move mountains. We shift tides. We lead change and we rise. And we say to each other, be unstoppable. Be unstoppable. Because in our homes, we are the stewards of dreams, the harvesters of hope. We tell our own children to reach for the stars. We are the keepers of secrets, the whisperers good night, because there is strength in softness too. With softness and compassion, we balance family and work, joy and sorrow, the letting grow and the pulling close, being mother, wife, daughter, sister, whole. We are brave. We'll grow, stand tall, we'll get dirty, sometimes fall, but we will leap with no fear of imperfection, no fear of broken skin, no fear of risk. We'll leap, climb, rise, run, band together and ignite change, and we'll vote. And through our vote, they'll hear our voices singing. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you. I had to stop myself from rising up in my seat. So we're going to have a conversation. It's a little strange not to be in the same room, but I was able to visit with Marilyn earlier today, and we're going to talk to both Higgins and Virmarie, but we're going to start. Marilyn, you talked a little bit about her flag in the unveiling video, but could you just tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to take on this onerous task? I mean, when did you start? And I know it's been a long time.
Yeah, so years ago, I picked up a book and read, of course, there's a gnat flying on me right now. Okay, I picked up a book and started reading about the suffrage era, and I learned stuff I had never, ever been taught in school. And I fell in love with the era and the fight and the women I met in those books, and I spent about a year doing the research. And then when I realized this anniversary was coming up, I knew I wanted to do something big to celebrate it. So I spent some time really thinking about the idea and dug into the history. And, it was just, this is my calling to do this and to raise awareness about voting and women's history. So yeah, it was just what I was compelled to do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I know that you're kind of the creative force, but you're not the only artist involved with this. So can you tell us a little bit about how you found and selected women in the 36 states that ratified, how you decided who was going to be a part of this project?
Yeah,
and
so
how you communicated with them. Yeah.
So in 2017 is when I came up with the idea and started working on this project. And we put a call for artists out on callforentry.org, and artists kind of know that's a cool place to go look. And we got over 300 applicants through this process. And we had a committee that decided the 36 artists, and we have such a range of artists. We have retired military, we have a Russian immigrant, we have Puerto Rican, Japanese, we just have a huge spectrum, and age spectrum too, and such diverse styles. We have Nicole LaRue, who designed the Washington Women's March logo, who's a part of the project. And there's just such a rich amount of women involved, and yeah, it was tough picking them, but I think we got a pretty great pool. So yeah, these 36 women artists are the heart and soul of this project.
Right. And so now I kind of want to turn to artists that are close to us. So we have Virmarie and we have Higgins Bond, and I've been lucky enough to meet them both. They have Arkansas connections. Right, so we're delighted to have them. Virmarie living just across the river. We're sharing a thunderstorm right now. And as Stephanie Street mentioned earlier, Higgins is actually from Arkansas and lived here for some time and did receive a very special award from President Clinton when he was governor. So I'll start with Virmarie, and just tell us a little bit more about your process in making the Arkansas stripe, and just things that you learned, just interesting. Okay. I know you've got a great story to tell.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Marilyn, for putting this together. As you know, I was born in Puerto Rico. I moved to Arkansas when I was 15. So coming into this project, I was very somewhat scared because the time that I should have been learning American history and civics was spent trying to learn English. And so I felt like I didn't know anything about suffrage. And so I put a call out on Facebook and said, does anyone know anyone in Arkansas who can help me figure this thing out? And Kathleen Pate's name came up over and over and over again. People saying, she is the lady you need to talk to. And so I contacted Kathleen, and she steered me into the right direction. And then I started doing the research, trying to learn so much. There's so much to know about, Arkansas women's suffrage. And as I was looking at the research, what got me the most was that I realized that the media had portrayed women as frumpy and nagging and unfeminine women rights campaigners. And so it wasn't really working for them what they were doing. So they needed to do something different. And they realized that dress had a lot of power, and it was a very powerful form of communication. And so I thought, well, I think I want to explore that some more. There's got to be something there. So I started looking at Adolphine Terry Fletcher, which was an Arkansas women's suffragette, and Clara McDermott. And there was so much there, but then I also learned that there were all these other women behind the scenes that had done so much. And back then, if you had the means, you could hire someone to put you in a corset and hold you up, you were more than likely also had the means to get your picture made for the paper. And so, but there were so many more, and I'm such a feeler, I want to just show everybody. And so I decided that I would use the Arkansas stripe to show how women over a century have used power and choice and self-expression to express themselves through clothing. Because I thought, well, that may be a different take that somebody else wasn't doing. And so the ladies, came together. They decided that there was power in numbers. White was thought of as pure, so they decided to wear white. And then, even if they were chained to a fence, at least they look really elegant and beautiful, and they were going to be taken more seriously. And so that really worked for them, and that was what inspired my design.
Thank you. And it was so great to see in that opening video how the stripes are so very completely different. And before we go to Higgins, I do want to mention that the flag will actually be on the side of the Clinton Presidential Library through September 21st. And so we've got Celebration Circle. Celebration Circle is at the end of President Clinton Avenue. So it's a great opportunity. We don't have as many opportunities to get out and experience art and history right now. So we want to encourage folks to just drive by the building and see her flag and kind of explore those things. Now, Arkansas is unique in that we were the 12th state to ratify, but then Tennessee is who brings it all home for us. So Higgins, I would love to hear a little bit more about the Tennessee stripe and kind of your inspiration for what it looks like.
You were breaking up there a little bit on the end, but I come from a perspective of an illustrator. I've illustrated a lot of children in this. I thought about the AIDS quilt.
We have lost Higgins. I do know that, as I mentioned, Tennessee was the 36th state to ratify. At the time in 1919, 1920, there were 48 states, and so 3/4 of the states, or 36, were needed to ratify. And I know that the last thing that I heard her say was about making sure that African-American women were represented. And certainly I know, Marilyn, that part of the artist selection had to do with engaging with a diverse community of artists. Now, we do have some questions that our audience, so that people sent questions in advance. And our first question actually relates to that, kind of relates to Well, I'll read the question. From Martha, the suffrage movement and the abolitionist movements began as allies, and yet there were ugly splits with Black women being marginalized. We face the legacy of that today with racism still dividing the women's movement when we ought to be working together. White women earn 80 cents to the male dollar, while for Black women it's closer to 60 cents. How can we best support each other looking forward to a more equitable world? So that's a big question.
Yeah, it's a really big, important question. We need to listen to each other, be mindful of history. I'm working on Her Flag and have done this to raise awareness about the struggle, how long it took, how slow change can be. It was 72 years from the point when women declared in Seneca Falls that they wanted the right to vote until it was passed. And it was raised in states across the country over and over again and failed repeatedly. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot of time and a lot of hard struggle to make change, and we just have to keep going. We have to keep working. We cannot give up. We have to keep fighting for change and equality.
Absolutely. Susan B. Anthony, famous quote, failure is impossible. And that is, you can't fail if you don't give up. Going to maybe a little easier or less, tell me, is there a specific suffragist or story that kind of stood out to you? I know that over the for the month of August, you've been sharing some information about African-American women who were active in the women's suffrage movement. So do you have a favorite suffragist or a favorite story?
Yeah, Ida B. Wells is one of my favorite suffrage fighters because her tenacity is just, was incredible, what she accomplished in her lifetime. So there was going to be a big suffrage parade with all the states represented in Washington, and the African-American women were told they were going to need to walk behind the white suffrage fighters as to not offend the South. And Ida, just said, well, that's not going to happen. And I've heard different stories related to this, this incredible moment in history. But there was great chaos within the parade at one point where the police that were there monitoring it kind of let it get out of control. And these women were surrounded by hundreds of thousands of men. And so it got a little out of control. Some of the women got a little roughed up. And in that chaos, Ida got right in with Illinois and walked with her fellow Illinoisans. And there was a photographer that took a picture of that, and you can see it online. But just her tenacity, and she was also incredible in the anti-lynching movement. She was really one of the huge catalysts on shining a light on that really horrible practice. So she is just, I think she's, an incredible American patriot that every American should know about.
Absolutely. We have so much to learn. And actually, Virmarie, I know that there is some special symbolism in the Arkansas stripe. You very cleverly wove in some state symbols. So could you tell us just a little bit about how you did that without making it, an obvious reference?
Sure. So when I was researching the Arkansas suffrage movement, Kathleen invited me to go to the MacArthur Museum of Military History, and Paige Harrington was doing a talk on the political cartoons of Nina Allender, and I fell in love with her work. She had such an amazing way in a political cartoon to tell something with just a simple line. I love the simplicity. I love the way she was able to portray these women, So for those that don't know, Nina Allender was the official cartoonist for the National Women's Party. She ended up doing about 150 or more political cartoons in that time period. She was one of the first women to be in that role, because back then they would put you under a pseudonym of a man because he just wasn't all that cool. And so she had a way of stylizing women and making them look young and waiting for the vote, you know? And so women fell in love with her work. One of my favorite stories is how women would go to the beauty salon with a political cartoon and said, I want my hair done like this. And so I started putting myself in her shoes and wondering, gosh, you know, what would it have been like if that would have been me? I have so much freedom to say whatever I want now, you know? And so as I was doing the flag, the stripe, I wanted to be able to use simple line with powerful color, because I love color. And then I put in a lot of the state symbols just here and there to kind of give it a little something. So that was that.
Yeah, I can't decide if the tomato or the honeybee is my favorite.
Yes.
Now, Higgins, are you back on the line? I don't see you in my panelists.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. So let's go back to talking about the Tennessee stripe and kind of making certain that African-American suffragists were represented.
Yes, she mentioned Ida B. Wells. She's also one of my heroes too. She was a journalist, and she wrote about all of the inequities that were going on, and lynching and so forth. And of course, she was very active in the suffragette movement. But all of the ladies that I chose, African-American women, were active in civil rights. Fannie Lou Hamer, Mary Church Terrell, Rosa Parks, of course. They were all very active in getting civil rights and voting in particular. Fannie Lou Hamer also was very special to me because her home, she was run away from her home just because she went and registered to vote. So she was very active throughout her life in getting African Americans to sign up to vote. And I had a special treat. Joe Biden, when he did his acceptance speech, when he walked up to the podium, the first thing he said, he quoted Ella Baker. And I thought that was very special that he used her as an example. She said, when you show people the light, they will find the way. And that was the first thing he said when he started his speech. So that was really very special to me. But anyway, like I said, I wanted to display women that were very active in the civil rights and the voting rights era.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so neat to see all of this come together. I don't know if you remember, we met several years ago when you were here as part of the Arkansas Literary Festival. And so I was very, very excited to hear that you were the designer for the Tennessee stripe, and then also to know of the work you've done with the U.S. Postal Service and creating those amazing stamps kind of celebrating African-American history. So you talk about traveling, and I know that you did come to Arkansas in the last summer of 2019, but the pandemic has had a little bit of impact on your work.
Yeah, so I got to the 25th state. I got to Washington before COVID, affected the travel. And then I went home to Oklahoma City, which is where I'm from, and began live streaming the stripe sewing performances on the scheduled dates. So I just kept going. And normally we were having performing artists doing things while I was sewing on the stripe in each performance. So I had to just talk and usually just talked about my suffrage nerditude while I was sewing. So I just altered, and I was able to go to Tennessee, which I was really happy, and be in the War Memorial Auditorium and sew on that last stripe and have Higgins with me. We were safely social distance, but I absolutely love that I did get to go and be in Tennessee for that final stripe sewing.
Yeah, what a great feeling. So we do have some more questions that audience members submitted in advance. Claire says, Marilyn, thank you for creating her flag. I was honored to create a stripe, so she's one of the artists, and work with so many powerful artists. Since you are great at creating unifying artwork, what's the next project you have in mind?
Yeah, so I do have my eye on the ERA, and my home state has not ratified the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. And so I'm very much going to be, after I take a minute to breathe and take care of myself a little bit, because this has been quite a journey, I'm going to definitely be thinking about that and trying to raise awareness about what it is, why it's important, how women we are not equal yet, and it's a process. We're working on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Another question, and then I'm going to go back to Virmarie and Higgins. Barbie submitted this question. What advice would you give to our young daughters who may be voting for the first time in this year's election?
Yeah, ooh, yeah, that's feels exciting and awesome to vote for the first time in this election, particularly. It's being mindful about the precious fight that occurred in order for young women to be, and all of us to be able to vote. And I think definitely digging into your own state and local elections and being educated. Thankfully, when I was first voting, we didn't have the internet, so it's so easy now to dig into what's happening and who's running and why. And so, yeah, dig into the history and the knowledge and educate yourself. That's where magic happens. Yeah.
Great advice. And, this is such a great teaching tool. We were having a conversation earlier, and you said that actually educators have reached out to you about doing workshops around the Her Flag project.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting a lot of requests right now to talk to us, all age group from college to elementary. And I say yes every time. I love it. I had a small little rural Oklahoma community contact me today. And so, yeah, I agreed to do that. So anytime I get to talk about women's history and raise awareness about voting, I am all in.
Excellent, excellent. And I know I want to make a plug for the workshop that you're going to be doing for us. You're actually going to be doing a student workshop in the day, in the morning on Thursday, September 17th, which is Constitution Day. So we picked that special day, and then also a teacher workshop that evening as well. So we're very excited about both of those free programs. I want to flip back to Virmarie and to Higgins for just kind of closing thoughts about your participation in the project, and if there was something that you learned that you didn't know already. Because I think it's what I hear Marilyn saying is this was a journey in which she learned all along the way. So, Virmarie, why don't you?
Okay. Well, this has been a wonderful experience. I have learned so much, just Arkansas suffrage history, being involved with Marilyn. She has been so gracious and wonderful from the design aspect. It was challenging to work with 80% red, because red is just a really strong color. And so I loved that I was able to show people and tell people about Arkansas women's suffrage. It's been wonderful to see how women, we are the change, we are the driving force of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And so I hope that this project can be taken on to different places to inspire other people. And I've also loved how all the artists have come together as a community. We've supported each other. Marilyn's been great with that.
Excellent. Higgins, tell us a little bit about maybe something. I feel like maybe you knew a lot of the women that you featured, but anything that was surprising to you or?
Well, I think the process of getting something ratified, I didn't realize how each state went through this process and the time it took for all of that to happen. I think before I got cut off young people take voting so much for granted, and they don't realize all of the people that have sacrificed and suffered and done so much just to give us the right to vote. And I just want, more than anything, for young people to look at this and realize what a privilege and what a sacrifice has gone before us to give them the chance to vote. And I hope they'll take advantage of it. That's the most important thing to me.
Yeah, thank you. You know, the ability to vote, not just a right, but a responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I know that when I go to the polls, I try to reflect upon those who sacrificed, who struggled. You know, it's not hyperbole to say that people died for our right to vote, literally. Mm-hmm. I try to avoid using that word, but absolutely, both in the suffrage movement and the modern civil rights movement. So certainly it is something. Now this question, I'm shifting focus. Higgins, Virmarie mentioned that her stripe was red. Is Tennessee's red or pink?
Yes, actually they put a red background. I did it actually a black and white pencil drawing. So they just did a silhouetted red background behind it and highlighted the name Tennessee above it. So mine was actually white, white, gray, and red.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, Marilyn, do you want to give us some parting thoughts about the project? I know you said you're going to get some well-deserved rest.
Yeah, for sure. So you can go to herflag.com, and each one of the artists' statements are there. The stripe artwork is there, so you can see it in great detail. And we have lots of, other information about the project because it's got a lot of complicated components to it. And I would love for you to follow us on Her Flag 2020 on Instagram and Facebook. We've been featuring a woman of color every single day during Women's Equality Month to raise awareness about women of color and their important role in the suffrage story in the United States.
Right. So the story of suffrage, I think, is still unfolding. I'm going to wrap up the program. I do want to thank Marilyn for being the creative force behind Her Flag and allowing us to debut it here at the Clinton Presidential Library. Virmarie and Higgins, thank you for sharing kind of your experience with making the stripes and kind of telling the special story for each of your states. And Akwi, the rousing poem to open, I think hearing and not really reinforcing the idea that women are actually the majority of voters. So women are driving this democracy as they have been since even before the Declaration of Sentiments at Seneca Falls. Women's voices were silenced, and it wasn't that long ago. 100 years is not that long ago. Marilyn represented Oklahoma in the Rose Bowl parade. And I think she and I were both surprised, or at least I know I was surprised, to learn that the Rose Bowl has existed longer than women have had the right to vote. So that was certainly a take-home point with me. I want to thank everyone for being a part of this program this evening, the virtual unveiling, the conversation. I know that it was very enjoyable for me. I'm just delighted to have been able to kind of visit with old friends and new friends. And we certainly hope everyone will take a moment if you're here in Arkansas or traveling. We'd love for you to come by the library and see that stripe. Marilyn mentioned you can look at the stripes up close on the Her Flag website, but to see the piece in its entirety on the side of the building is certainly worth a drive to the library. So I want to thank everyone, and how about we close out with the idea that with this, we all need to exercise our right to vote. Thank you.